first of all, what was your initial reaction hearing this sentence coming out of Donald Trump? Were you surprised, or do you think that having heard all of these things coming out of him, we're not surprised anymore, whatever he says?
I wasn't surprised. In fact, I was quite pleased with how he handled it. I think everyone looking at this has started to have questions about how viable a two-state solution actually is. At the same time, there's no other alternative that really makes any sense for the people of Israel and the people of the Palestinian area. So getting to that, I think, is difficult, and framing it in a way just that we are prepared to support whatever those parties themselves can agree, I think is a very nice and a very appropriate way to frame it right now. I think in the end it will be a two-state solution, but I think trying to push that or impose that a little too harshly would be wrong. Teeing it up so that you say, look, we will support whatever the parties agree, I think is a very nice way to do it.
But again, this is a shock to the political and diplomatic community and to many people who are in the press in the United States. They're saying he's again breaking from a decades-old tradition or long-held policy, as he has done, or he tried to do on the One China policy, for instance, but finally he had to make a U-turn. Is this going to be the same thing here? Because this really is taking a lot of people by surprise.
Well, I don't think it should take people by surprise. Anyone who's been watching this over the past 5-6 years has seen that the process toward negotiating a two-state solution has stalled out. There has been really no progress at all under the Obama administration. Really, the last movement we had was in the Bush administration towards the end of it at Wye River. Since then, it has been stuck. There have been, I'd say, setbacks, in fact, whether on settlements or on conflict with the Palestinians. And as a result of that, I think it takes a little bit of a fresh start. So it shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone that you need to just take a step back, support what the parties can agree. And what is interesting, really, is that President Trump is putting his weight behind the idea of a peace process again. That's something that has not happened for several years.
Now, you said this should not take people by surprise. However, we have heard people coming out saying that they are not liking this idea. For instance, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has suggested that the United States should not back away from this two-state solution that has been a kind of a political consensus of the international community. China has also been calling for a two-state solution. Why is he just walking away from it like that?
Well, I think you misheard what he said then, because he didn't say that the United States is walking away from a two-state solution. In fact, he specifically said he would support a two-state solution, he would support a one-state solution, but it's up to the parties to negotiate and agree with each other. And I think that is a key point. In the end, as I said, I think the only thing that they could possibly agree is a two-state solution, and he's clearly keeping the United States' support behind that as well.
No, I don't have a particular preference as to two-state solution or one-state solution, so long as it's a well thought of a solution and it's a solution that is agreed to by all parties. Actually having heard the reaction from the Palestinian side, although we haven't heard any official reaction yet from the Palestinian Authority, the former chief Palestinian negotiator has actually not ruled out this one-state solution. But what he said is, so long as it is not a one-state, two systems with an apartheid kind of a rule, then, and it is a democratic country that take the Palestinians' rights and interests into consideration. So it actually can work out. So let's wait and see. But still, given the kind of track record of stepping back from what he previously claimed, it does sound a little fishy at this moment. Let's talk about the Jewish settlement stance he gave out during this press conference. Now, he has said that Israel should hold the settlement building a little bit. How did you read into that?
Well, I thought that was very interesting as well. This is something that President Obama pushed on very, very hard, and it really fractured the relationship between the United States and Israel. He was pushing very hard on stopping settlements and that being a precondition for having a real peace process. I think people expected President Trump to be turning a blind eye to the settlement activity, but instead he brought it up, and he brought it up publicly and urged them to hold back. I think he did that because of some of the contacts he's had with Arab leaders who view that as an important element for their engagement in the process and for their own public opinion. And I think he also did it recognizing that if he wants to see a peace process begin to take shape again, that Israel holding back on those settlement activities would be important to create the conditions. So I think it was a bit surprising, and I think it was a positive step.
On the Iran issue, again, he was making it very clear that he thought that the Iran nuclear deal is the worst deal ever made. Let's take a listen to what he said during this press conference.
One of the worst deals I've ever seen is the Iran deal. My administration has already imposed new sanctions on Iran, and I will do more to prevent Iran from ever developing, I mean ever, a nuclear weapon.
Now, well, nobody wants Iran to develop a nuclear weapon. I think that is the international consensus. Actually, teams from multiple countries have spent years trying to come up with that agreement exactly to curb Iran's capability to develop a nuclear weapon. Mr. Volker, why do you think that Trump is trying to scrap the Iran nuclear deal? That is, till now, the best guarantee we have that Iran does not go down on that dangerous path.
Well, I don't think he's trying to scrap the existing nuclear deal. What he's saying is that it doesn't do the job it was meant to do. It was meant to prevent Iran from ever attaining a nuclear weapon. What it does is it allows Iran to engage in a number of activities that kind of keep the nuclear program on a warm back burner for a while it can develop technology and capacities, can develop missile delivery systems, and that phases out after a 10-year period. So it allows Iran in the end to end up with a nuclear program. So the complaint is not that this agreement needs to be gotten rid of, but rather it's not sufficient because it doesn't do what it set out to do.
Well, he said he wanted to scrap the Iran deal. That's his literal words.
He said that during the campaign, yes.
He said
yeah,
that.
I don't
like
think
many other things he said during the campaign. Should we totally discard what he said during the campaign at all? I mean, that is the impression I'm getting so far.
Well, no, you can't disregard it. No, you can't disregard it. You have to pay attention to that. And he, I think, is reflecting a very strongly held view that, as he just said, he believes it's a terrible agreement because it didn't achieve the objectives it sought out to do. What you do about that, however, is different. I think what is more likely is the administration will continue to monitor that agreement, try to add to it or strengthen it, put in place additional sanctions that relate to the missile programs, and put more pressure on Iran's activity in the region, including supporting the civil war in Yemen and Hezbollah. I think that will be the push. He's not going to give up on this by any means.
Yeah, well,
I'm just saying specifically, there's no mileage in trying to eliminate this agreement. It's multilateral. Everybody else in the world is going to stick with it. It would only isolate the United States to say we're walking away.
Well, that is the impression I have been getting, and exactly, this is a multilateral agreement. If the United States decide to scrap it, I don't know whether legally it can be done. It's an agreement that everybody signed up to. I think it is legally binding as well. But I do not know, by imposing more sanctions on Iran, if that is going to help bring Iran to its knees in terms of its nuclear program. It had not. We have tried this over longer than a decade, and it has not succeeded. So, and by imposing more sanctions, actually the stance of Iran has been hardened, and we are seeing heightened tension in that region. But indeed, I want to go on just a little bit to the kind of very close personal relationship that we're seeing between Netanyahu and Trump. It gave me the impression that because they're so good, so close to each other, that they're backing each other kind of without conditions. And that is why Trump is so harsh on Iran, for instance, because Israel is very much against Iran. Is that the case?
I don't think that's the reason that Trump is harsh on Iran. I think he's harsh on Iran because of Iran's behavior over many, many years, developing a nuclear program, engaging in regional conflicts, supporting terrorism. So I think that's the reason. In addition to that, Iran has also called for the elimination of Israel, and so that's additive to that. As far as the relationship with Israel goes, what I think is important is that Israel is more able to negotiate with its neighbors and with the Palestinians when it feels more secure. And I think over the past several years, when we've had a very bad U.S.-Israeli relationship, we've had no progress on the ground with Israel. I'm hopeful that with a more confident Israel, confident in its relationship with the United States, we'll actually be able to see Israel negotiate more and try to develop more solutions in the region. That's what we would hope for.
Finally, given the kind of disagreement within the Palestinians, do you think it is a viable prospect that we're going to see a major peace deal in the next few years?
This is the hardest policy issue that anyone has ever had to deal with. Many negotiators, many presidents have tried to come with such a solution. It's always been elusive. The sides have gotten close. At Y River in the Bush administration, they were close. In the Clinton administration, they were close. But no one has ever gotten there. I don't want to predict success just because it's so hard, but it is encouraging to see that there's going to be a fresh effort taking place.